God, everyone. What an absolute honour. And this is quite significant because I've just got this microphone and it's episode 140 and I'm talking with the legend, and us in New Zealand have just been reintroduced to Robbie Kröger. That's right, Kröger?
Kröger, just like the supermarket here in America. But yeah, Kröger's perfect. Thank you, buddy.
We've just been reintroduced to Robbie through Dreamtime with the help of Cam Henderson. Mate, well, that's as good a place to start as anyone.
Should we start with Cam Henderson? Can we start there?
Yeah.
A 21-year-old bugger, who drives me up the wall. Like, he is if you take one end of the spectrum of personality types and put it against the other spectrum of personality types, I'm on this spectrum, right? I am A-type personality. I'm a go, 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 go. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go until 9 o'clock at night. Cam Henderson rolls out of bed at 7:25, and we're supposed to be on the Jeep at 7:30. And he's like, I got to have a dark first. And I'm like, dude, you gotta get going. And he's just, he's laid back, and he grated my last nerve. But it's a love-hate relationship because the boy is so talented, and he is just, you saw it. Dreamtime is, he shot it, he edited it, I produced it for him, but magic, right?
Yeah. So one of the outtake scenes that you chucked up on yours and his Instagram was him grabbing your hand. And when we finished up our podcast around episode 92, or it's in the 90s anyway, we're sort of hanging up. I've got those same glasses actually. We're hanging up, and then Cam, cheekily recording on his Instagram, goes to me, "I love you, bro," and then hits record when I say, "I love you too, bro," and straight away on Instagram. The love-hate, like, he brings a lot of love to the table, doesn't he, old Cam?
So he was forever trying to kiss me, and he's forever trying to kiss me, and then that scene where I'm like, all right, I'm just relaxing because it's about an hour drive, and the boy just like, and he purposely had the camera out, he put his hand on my hand, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he just filmed the entire thing. Jeez.
Jeepers. So how did you, fortunately, unfortunately, get introduced to our Hunter's Journal legend?
Yeah, so I will say this. I think that Cam Henderson is probably one of the best cinematographers that you guys have in the Southern Hemisphere. There's no doubt about it. And from a Blood Origins project perspective, I'm interested in creating essentially a stable of young studs, like the guys that are Google University trained, right? They have an eye, they know what they want, they know how to shoot it, and they shoot it differently. Cam Henderson's one of them. The guy who started with me here in America, Drew Seals, who just started a new company called Nomad Collective. Legendary Cam Henderson type stuff, the Slots Media boys out of the UK, young guns. And so I met Cam, gosh, he was going to Mongolia to film Pedro's Ibex. And somehow we started talking. I don't know why. I think it was because we put Blood Origins into the first volume of Hunter's Journal, actually our story of what Blood Origins is. And we started talking then, and, he finished that hunt, and for the first time we just Instagram, and I didn't know this, but Instagram has a video platform through its Instagram message. And we had a really cool video chat whilst he was sitting in, I don't know, Beijing airport or something like that, waiting to get home. And he was about a half a bottle of bourbon deep already at that point.
So he didn't learn his lesson on the way in.
There, yeah.
That's a great story on his interview with The Educated Hunter, is his story on the way into Mongolia. If you've got a spare hour, go tune into The Educated Hunter, guys, and listen to Cam's inbound story. So his outbound story was not much different.
Well, that story is the epitome of Cam Henderson. You're flying to a country that probably frowns on alcohol use, that you've never flown into before. And for the majority of us, we'd be like, all right, we need to make sure our P's and Q's are correct. We're just going to be perfect. And the boy gets blotto drunk. Who does that?
Cam.
Cam Henderson.
Yeah, no. One more story, get him under the bus because he deserves it. The Seeker show, I'm sure you've picked up, he's a big fan of Fireball, that cinnamon drink, and Seeker show, he managed to work that out at about 2 PM. So there's a few people with big smiles on their face for the latter part of the first day, and then big frowns on their face and trying to find places under the desk on the Sunday, that was for sure.
Well, he brought a bottle of Fireball to, obviously, well, I don't know if he brought it or we bought it or whatnot, to the Dreamtime hunt. And it was actually pretty good to have right in the middle of freaking nowhere. Probably in a place where no white man has been before, which is the whole point of our journey. And we had a bunch of Fireball around the table. And there's a couple of pictures of us, obviously, that Cam took that night that are exceptional photographs. And one of the guys that was on the trip, a guy called Belton McMurray, he's a Texan. There's a picture of Belton, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I tagged, actually on Insta story, and I tagged Fireball Whiskey into it. And they responded through the Instagram message. And they responded like this. They said, good looking picture or something like that. And the bloke isn't too bad looking either. And my initial reaction was, is it a guy or a girl running this Instagram account? So, it was just an epic trip. And, Cam is Cam, but he's so phenomenally talented. And he keeps telling me, he's like, I'm getting out of the video game. I'm getting out of the video game. I was like, dude, you are I don't know. We'll keep him in the video game. I got a couple of projects that I want to do in New Zealand.
Thank you. Yeah, I am taking minimal but credit for his movie night. On our podcast, I said to him, New Zealand needs a hunting movie night. We've got the Mountain Film Festival. Just look at the states, what mountain ops are doing, what they're doing in Oregon and things like that. There's big place for hunting videos. I'm one of these people that lives in the city, sits down when I get a spare half hour and just binges on hunting films. There's a space for it. And he's like, oh, no. I knew he had two.
Did you attend it?
Oh, mate, his notice needed some work. I tell you that.
Well, come on. Yeah. It's Cam Henderson. He's like, we'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. Everyone show up tomorrow.
No, I was so jealous. I made up for it though. So I had a wedding on the Friday, and had a great time on the Thursday, Friday, and then on the Saturday went hunting the day before he had the film festival, and we had success. And turns out, week before lockdown, had a full freezer of red deer hind, so it worked out all right.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of Dreamtime, you bring up the topic of trophy, and like you said, a place where possibly no white man had ever been before, and you found some art. And I was talking with Toby Hines. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Hunt Mountains. He's from Australia, Hunter Valley, and he's had a similar excursion around the Northern Territory finding paintings. What is it like to stumble across something so sacred and telling an amazing story, which is what you're in the business of, telling stories?
Yeah, so what really helped is I had a very clear vision of like exactly what I wanted out of this film. So if you watch Dreamtime, the only narrative that I actually voiced over here back in the States is the opening narrative. Mm-hmm. Every single other voiceover that you hear me do was on the trip, was on the walkabout. Mm-hmm. So I was in a frame of mind that was just like, I knew what I was looking for. I knew what the purpose of me doing what I wanted. And I wanted an adventure. Like, I'm a young hunter, man. I'm a nascent hunter, and I'm learning, and I want to explore what that means to me, because it's so important to be able to show that to my boys, right? That's the whole reason why I created Blood Origins the way that I did, is that I come from a family steeped in hunting heritage. I never got to hunt. Now I get to hunt. And so I need to figure out what that means, and so that I can give it to my boys. And so this trip in the Northern Territory, one, my mother's Australian. Don't hold that against me, okay? I know it's the dark side of my family. I have to live with it all the time. And I've got a termite that just came in. I may have to do something. And so I really wanted to explore it, right? And so I talked to Harry and I talked to Blair, and I said, what is about your place? Is there places that you've never been? He was like, oh yeah, there's tons of places. So we just picked the river that we wanted to, and we just headed right up it. And there were just things that we wanted to explore. We were exploring, and that was the point of that walkabout. We just went to explore it, and we just so happened to have a 416 Rigby with us, and we were looking for a big buffalo at the same time. And that was it. It wasn't. If you watch again, everything is, and you know this from Blood Origins. We are probably the most authentic organization, brand, platform out there right now, in that we don't fake things, right? And we speak from the heart. And when you hear that exchange between Harry, Blair, and myself before I kill that buffalo, he's like, it's not going to score well. And I say, I don't care. Like, and that wasn't redone. That wasn't like, okay, guys, position yourselves. That was us watching that buffalo from 300 yards away and saying, all right, let's go kill it.
Mate, there's no way you can fake that. Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Let's go do this.
Yeah, there's no way that can be faked.
And so that was a trophy of an adventure, right? And that's what the whole point of the film was, is that you wouldn't, and here's the crux, right? You wouldn't go into the middle of nowhere, Australia, spend 2.5 days to get there, hike back 3 days into the middle of nowhere, and sit down under a random tree and go, okay, that was great, and head home.
No.
You go there for a purpose. And as hunters, that purpose is to hunt. And a part of hunting is killing. And it's not something we need to shy away from, but it's not something that, as I've had many, many discussions with people, they say, well, I love to kill. I said, yes and no. You when you pull that trigger, if I had to stop everyone in time at that 1/10 or 100th of a second before that trigger breaks, and I could hold you there in that moment, would you stay in that moment, or would you break the trigger? And it's because when you break that trigger, things are over.
Sort of.
You get the meat. Some of us are for getting the meat and whatnot, and sometimes it's not over, right? Sometimes the adventure is almost half beginning right there, because then you have to move it and you have to go camp and you have to eat it, and that's what we try to portray in the film. So that's what the whole point of Blood Origins and the project is that it's the industry, the hunting industry, up until now, and I think everyone's turning. I think the tide is changing. Up until now, everyone has focused on the kill, because bullets sell, guns sell, broadheads sell, and they kill things more efficiently and more effectively, and that's what essentially is the industry, and that's what we've been pigeonholed into. But there's a new narrative in town, and there's a new wave of hunters that understand who they are and why they do it, and that's what's needed for us to maintain our lifestyle for our kids, your kids one day, and grandkids one day.
Oh, mate. One episode that I watched, and I'd just been on a friend's podcast, Dave Perry, who's trying his hand at, did you get it?
Heck yeah, I got it.
No more termite. He's trying his hand at hunting apparel for New Zealand. And one of his inspirations is Jason Hairston. And we just finished a discussion about what a man and what a loss. And then I jump on your page, and there he is staring down the barrel, telling the story. Mate, it brought tears to my eyes. It just must be a big shame, but then also just the most amazing thing to have that story documented, like you say, so we can share with the world someone's very, very intense narrative of what it means to be a hunter and what it means to put that into two sensational brands.
Yeah, so Jason is quite special to the project because there's very few people in the industry who talk the talk and walk the walk, is what I found in the 4 years that we've been going. Jason said he would do X for us, and he did X. Said he would do Y, he did Y. It wasn't just, oh, we love the project, sounds great, and you never hear from the person again. Jason was the man, and we went and interviewed him. The interview was amazing. The episode was incredible, and we dropped his episode September-ish, I think. I don't remember the exact date. If you go to Jason M. Hairston's Instagram profile right now, if you pick up your phone right now, our Blood Origins episode is still linked in to his Instagram account.
Yeah.
Like you click it and it's us. And, you know, he took his life 3 weeks later after our episode dropped. And it was the first time that it was just obviously, and I found out early that day, somebody let me know and I couldn't believe it. And, you know, we've got some special ties with QU and we've got some special ties with obviously the Hairston family. And yeah, it almost, at that time, I'll say this, at that time we didn't really know what we had. Like, we didn't realize that what we capture and who we capture and their message is now immortalizing them. They're obviously, Jason is immortalized in so many other fashions. But we have a piece of content that nobody else has of Jason, who's now not with us anymore. Same with in that same season, we dropped a journey called Living Legacy, which is about these women that came together in 1943 in the height of austerity measures in World War II. And they served the soldiers going off to war, and they served them this thing called the pheasant sandwich. I don't know if you've heard the story or not. Stop me if you have.
Carry on.
But so the story goes, in 1943, these band of women came together in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and said, we want to help the soldiers. We can't go off to war, so how do we help them? Well, we can feed them as they're coming through town. So Aberdeen, all the trains coming out of the west would go through Aberdeen to go to Chicago for the guys to get on the ships and go off to war. And so the woman decided to feed them. So how are they going to feed them? They don't have much food. They don't have much rations. They don't have much gas because austerity measures are in place. Everything's being directed to the war. And so the hunters of the town decided to pool their shotgun shells and pool their gas. And DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, said to them, no limit on pheasants if you can send it to the kitchen. And so they sent it to the kitchen. And so the hunters became patriots, essentially. And the hunters provided the food for the pheasant sandwich, and these ladies served the soldiers. And there was one lady in particular called Miss Bonnie Ellis. Miss Bonnie Ellis was 18 at the time in 1943, and she served all these soldiers. And she found out that 4 of her friends were killed in World War II. And because of that fact, she enlisted herself as a nurse. And she got on the train and came through Aberdeen and got served a pheasant sandwich. Well, when we told this story, we filmed Miss Bonnie Ellis. She was 93 years old. She's still alive today. And she was in her full dress gear. She had her dog tags. Her makeup was atrocious. You know, it was all over the show. But she was so proud. And you could see the glint in her eye. When you watch that film, you can see at the end, we asked her, like, why did you enlist? And you could see her, like, reliving that moment. She was like, 4 of my friends died. What else was I going to do? It was the right thing to do. Well, Miss Bonnie Ellis passed away last November. So, again, we've got content of Miss Bonnie Ellis that nobody else has. Right? I get goosebumps thinking about it because that's what the project, you know, there's things that the project does that you don't really think about, and the meaning behind it, and the meaning that we have of these people's, the realness of them. And so that's what we strive to get. We strive to get the realness of people, and what hunting means to them. And that's a big deal. And Jason is a huge influence on us and what we've done.
So you mentioned your boys there and passing on this way of life that you and I love so much and have come to later in life. Why go about it the way you have in terms of Blood Origins? Why get a wide narrative to expose them to, not just your passion, your take on things? Why expand it to this organism now that is Blood Origins?
Because I couldn't find what I was looking for. Right? You tell me where else you can find what we do. You can't. And it's like, so I was looking for it, right? It was not just for the boys. I was searching for it. And I was watching these guys whisper to each other, and here comes the deer. I was like, is the deer actually coming, or is this like acting? And I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so and you're right. You're pointing on something that I don't think, if you asked me 4 years ago, Robbie, what is Blood Origins going to morph into? What is it going to evolve into? Where we stand today, there's no way I could have told you that, right?
Yeah.
The fact that we've now tentacled out across the world, stories from Denmark, stories from Australia, we're hopefully one day, maybe 2021, we're in New Zealand, telling the heart of the culture of hunting in New Zealand, from, tattooed up girls that love to hunt to Joe Blow down the street, kind of thing. The heart of the culture, the blue-collared heart of the culture, not the famous individuals, because everyone knows them. They've got good stories, yes, but the heart of our culture is in the blue-collared guys and girls that do it because they love it. And it's now turned into, I'll tell you what, we've been thinking really hard about our mission statement, because people ask me, and maybe this is one of your questions that you had, but people ask me, what is Blood Origins? And a lot of people have said, oh, you're just a production company. And I was like, and that hurts, because we're not a production company. We do beautiful work, but we're not a production company. We're an organization, we're a brand, we're a platform, we're a message, we're a vision, we're a purpose. We're all of that blended together. I don't know what you want to call us then, but our mission is very simple, and that's conveying the truth about hunting. And conveying means disseminating. Conveying means telling. Conveying means showing. The truth. The truth is emotional. The truth is gratifying. The truth is about the meat. The truth is about family. The truth is about tradition. The truth is about, sometimes we mess up. And it's okay to say that, right? The truth is transparency. The truth is vulnerability. All the things that we've never really touched on because it's not that cool.
No, I think it's extremely cool. And that's why, coming from this podcast, is the massive resonance there. You just have run through a whole bunch of themes that have come up of late, and truth has been especially one of them. Vulnerability, emotion has been other ones. Resilience and preparedness, food, being close to it. Man, you're giving me goosebumps now, mate.
So we're gonna drop a little. So we've started these little. Well, I say we've started. We've only dropped one, but the freaking response was incredible. So we've started these talking head videos. I don't know if you saw the one I dropped on Sunday.
With the guys you did the hunt with?
Oh, I did a talking head like this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The
title of it, Wild Game versus Filet Mignon.
Yes. No, I shared that with another, and I shared it on my page. And mate, for me, that's a massive part of why I go hunting. You cannot get any closer to your food And
100%.
what you said about venison and the value. So a little bit about me. I'm hugely passionate about our venison industry here, and I have this dream of doing paddock to plate on the same place. And yeah, mate. Oh, again, you keep giving me chills, brother.
Yeah, well, we're going to drop one on Sunday, and so the headlines in America right now are the food supply chain is breaking.
Mm-hmm.
The food supply chain is broken. The COVID-19 pandemic has broken the food chain. And this is how I started. I say that and I say, that's pretty scary. Those are some scary messages for the majority of Americans. And I'm confident when I say the majority, because there's only 4% of us that are hunters. And those 4% probably have full freezers. Mm-hmm. And what does a full freezer mean in these times? Peace of mind.
Yeah, I just think of New Zealand, we're about 5%, and then we're about 20% agriculture. And yeah, so what does that leave us with? Maybe 75% or probably 78% of our population again going, ah.
So is that the true statistic? 5% of New Zealanders are hunters?
About 250,000. So I was doing some quick maths in my head. We're about 5 million people. That's how small we are. And yeah, about 250,000 hunters. And as I said, then there's about 20% maybe of our population, and I might be overestimating that, are in agriculture. And a lot of that 5% of hunters will be encompassed by those people that are in agriculture. So yeah, but I'd argue that our food supply system was broken anyway. Going back to your first one, the narrative around what is food was broken anyway. I just moved to a farm, and there's vegetables that come out of the ground, and there's animals, both farmed and wild, running around, and the mountains are right there with more animals in them. And I think for me, being close to your food is food. Opening a packet and seeing a bunch of words on a packet is not food. And I had some pad thai for lunch, and it's going through my head was, this is peasant food. This is rice noodles, a bunch of fun, chili and coriander and lemongrass and things like that. Like that's not food. Where's the food? The only food when there was prawns, and again, that's probably peasant food.
From Vietnam or something like that. Probably.
Yeah, they're those things that are in the bottom of the ocean that you just pick out. They got barely any brains. And you need a massive handful of them to get a meal. Whereas, man, how many meals do you thinking of the ultimate, like a water buffalo or a bison or an elk or even that red deer that I got before lockdown? How many meals have we got in that for the sake of one life who was living in the most incredible place in the world? We had that
100%.
At that moment up in the top of the gulch, looking out over the hills out to the coast, and it was like sun was going down. Oof! Tell me, how do you buy that from the supermarket?
No, you don't. And here's the other thing, right? And I said it in that video. That type of that meat, when you break it down to an economic cost, is extremely expensive, right? Yeah. In terms of, you think about the guns and the binos and everything. It's expensive meat. We don't do it from an economics perspective, and we give it away freely. Like we don't. It's not something that it's like because it's so expensive. You think the paradigm is because it's so expensive we would hold on to it. No, it's the opposite. We give it away. We share it with our friends. We share it with our families. But if you go to the grocery store and you buy your filet mignons and you buy your ribeyes and you buy your lamb shanks, nobody comes home and calls up their mates and go, "Hey, I got some ribeyes I just bought. You want some?" Nobody does that.
Yeah. The most you might do is say, I've cooked up some ribeyes. Do you want to bring something else and let's share a meal?
Exactly.
But you better bring something valuable like a whiskey or some great red wine.
That's exactly it. That's exactly right.
No. What's the food climate like normally, and how have you seen it change in your area with going into a, I don't know, are you allowed to go to a butcher at the moment?
We don't have butchers here.
No butchers. Oh,
no
God.
butchers, no bakeries. That's just America, right? You vary those types of skilled places just don't exist. Only in big metropolitan areas are they getting like fancy, right? So you'll have a fancy butcher or you have a fancy bakery. But no, we just all the meats in the supermarket essentially. And so, yeah, they're getting to a point where you can only take 3 things of meat in the next couple of weeks. I saw out of Costco or some of these big stores, and the food culture, and this is going to be part of the message that we drop on Sunday, in that I don't think I wouldn't have put any money on me saying this, but you've got to thank a millennial because those millennials today are saving hunting, because what they're interested in is the locavore movement. They're interested in understanding where their food comes from. They're really interested in understanding or wanting their meats and vegetables to be organic, antibiotic free, hormone free, all the things that hunting and venison is. And so they don't really have an issue, well, some of them obviously do, but they don't have an issue with hunting. They've got more of a central focus on things that are healthy for them. And once they understand that connection, that, by procuring my own meat, this is the healthiest form that I can get meat for myself and my family, those are the saviors of hunting right now in that demographic, that real suburban, urban demographic, for the food culture, from a food culture perspective.
I think you can expand on that health of the food to everything that goes into the food. Again, shouting out to the Educated Hunter guys. They've just in the process of putting together a recipe book from hunters of wild game and foraged and fished recipes, and all proceeds are going to go to a mental health charity. Because what do you think about when you're out there on the hill? What is the conversation you have around the campfire? And what is the difference in how you feel from that, I don't want to go this time, I better go out there, to why the heck did I think that wasn't a good idea? Mentally, what does hunting mean to you? Because, man, health-wise, it's not just this nutritious, nutrient-dense food. It's the experience, the purpose, the quality of life that goes into that food. And that's why you share it, because it's like, mate, this is amazing.
100%. You nailed it.
Agrees.
Like, what do you want me to say? Like, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Check.
Don't need to sell it to me. Yeah, speaking to the converted, mate. It's funny that you've sort of come more into my life of recently, because I just found out just before we went into level 4 what the skipping generation was for me, and that was that industry that I love, the venison industry in New Zealand, where my dad sort of went on his university holidays and high school holidays to work on a farm. Was one of the key places where animals were extracted, both for wild caught venison market sending to Germany originally, and then for live capture to put into our deer industry farms. And so there was no deer around, so he was a rabbit or possum shooter, chucked the odd spinner in the creek, and that's why all we ever had in our household was a 22 and a single barrel shotgun. In New Zealand, I'm so lucky that it's not that hard to then pick it up again and talk to many people. you know, you're from Africa, and like you say, you've got this lineage of hunting. Yet, what's your story? Why did you have to be a adult hunter?
Yeah, because it was taken away from me, right? It wasn't available to me. I lived in a town of 8.5 million people. So think of the guys that are living in downtown Sydney.
Yeah.
They don't have an idea of hunting. I didn't have an idea of hunting. All I had was stories from my grandfather and my father. I had trophies on the wall, but it wasn't accessible to me. And even I would even argue that Australia, living in Sydney with the Hunter Valley 2 hours away and the Blue Mountains 2 hours away, hunting's accessible. Like you could just go. Well, in South Africa, it's not. Like, you know, the gun laws, obviously the gun laws are much stricter in Australia than they are in South Africa. Well, South Africa may rival the gun laws in Australia right now. But all that stuff was gone. Like the Mozambique that my grandfather experienced and my father was raised in as a teenage boy, it was gone. The paradise that, you know, my grandfather gave my father a Cape buffalo for his 16th birthday present. That stuff, it was gone for me. So they never really talked about hunting. They never discussed it. You would think we would have sat by, you know, at the foot of my grandfather's big chairs, big leather chair that he had in Mozambique, and he would regale hunting stories to us. He didn't regale a single story to us. And I think about like, why didn't he do it? And I don't know if they wouldn't have made a pact, but it was almost like the paradise that they had was gone, raped, you know, destroyed by civil war. And they just were like, we can't talk about it. It hurts too much to talk about. So why would we tell these boys about this place that they'll never see? And luckily enough, I got to come to America to do a PhD, and I got to experience an Africa outside of Africa. Like, you know, I think New Zealand is obviously a sportsman's playground. You guys can hunt anything you want pretty much any time of the year. It's like, you know, it's amazing. And fish and birds, and it's just incredible. And the same thing here in America. The outdoor sportsman, outdoor paradise is here. It is here right now. Like we're living the heyday of it. And I get to live it, and I get to experience it, and I get to raise my boys in it. So yeah, it's fortunate.
So do you think there's some shame in it? Shame that it got, you know, it's a big force that turned that culture around in Africa. But do you think it was almost shame in that it was let go, or shame in that they had that privilege and now it couldn't be handed on? I don't know.
No, it's not shame because they couldn't help it.
Yeah.
It's not like, and I'll say this, they obviously, those guys in the 50s and 60s that hunted, and my grandfather would be the first one to tell you if he was alive, they didn't have an idea of resource management. They weren't thinking about sustainability of populations and whatnot because it was so prolific, right? The wildlife was so prolific. But no, revolutions and wars, and that's what killed everything. That's what destroyed everything. It wasn't the individuals like the hunters or whatnots that, it wasn't like the bison, right? The bison getting wiped out by market hunters. That's not what happened in Africa. Africa is a symptom of its colonial past. And then just, you know, everybody just ejecting out and take care of yourself, and it disrupting into just chaos and civil war.
Yeah. I don't know if you caught up with NZ Hunter. They went to Zimbabwe.
Oh, phenomenal little film that they put out.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal little film.
Yeah. So if you, from your perspective, if you could speak to the if it pays, it stays mentality for Africa.
Yeah, it's simple economics, right? So you have a piece of land, wherever that may be in Africa, whether that's privately owned or publicly owned or in some sort of trust. That land has to do something. It's just simple economics. So it can either do agriculture, which means cattle, a very low subsistence crop and that is what generates some revenue, or it can have wildlife. And the wildlife, though, has to have some monetary component to it for it to stay. And that monetary component could be ecotourism. So you bring a bunch of tourists and they take a bunch of photographs. And in some parts of Africa, that is the model for non-consumptive use of the resources of that area. And that, I think, is one of the key messages that as hunters, we tend to forget. We tend to, beat our chest and say that hunting is the be all and end all of saving African wildlife. Let's just stick with African wildlife for now. But in fact, it's just a tool in the toolbox for the conservation of wildlife in Africa. In certain places, hunting is the only tool. In some places, ecotourism is the only tool. But both of them provide a value to the animal, i.e., if that animal is there, there is value. If the animal is not there, there is no value. And that value then gets translated into jobs for the locals, gets translated into food for the locals, gets translated into medical access, education access, all sorts of different values. A lot of people think it's just cash in hand as a value. There's all sorts of values that go with it. And so in a hunting type scenario, it pays, it stays. Well, rich hunters coming in to pay to hunt that animal means that you want that animal to be around more. You want more of those animals. And I think that's the paradigm that a lot of anti-hunters, not so much non-hunters, that it's a difficult thing to understand. They think that we go into places and we just rape and pillage, right? We just kill everything that we possibly can see. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's an economic asset that you want to grow. So you don't want to make it an unsustainable model. You want to make it a sustainable, if not increasing model. And so that's where the pay, if it pays, it stays, almost, earns its keep, essentially.
And then I guess, like you say, the low subsistence crop, the small scale cattle, they're dependent on food, and if they're being invaded by whomever or whatever, then it loses its value very quickly because it's taking away from the value to the owner and maybe the small community. So that's where a balance of ecosystem becomes challenging, and especially as populations grow and then need, like you say, for schooling, for feed, for medical care, for all of that, they need that value of the farming system. They need that crop, that meat to be as good as it possibly can and feed as many people. And if they're losing out, then its value drops. And that's where I guess from the Kiwi perspective and probably the Aussie perspective, we can sort of draw parallels in that the value in our countries is placed on our natural and original flora and fauna, and our introduced species take away from that value. The same for Africa. Their value is in the livestock, the meat, the crops, and any time that's taken away, then the value drops. It becomes, and we hate using this word in New Zealand. We want to use game animals, resources, but they become pests very quickly if they're not managed. And a bit like ecotourism and hunting, they need managed resources. That's how.
Well, I'll just say this. I think the lion example that you, the cattle and subsistence example you give is a good one, but let's expound it a little bit, right? So if there was no hunting in a place and lions came in and took out a bunch of cattle, that animal, the lion, has no value. It actually is decreasing the value of the cattle, right? So they're going to indiscriminately kill that lion because it is of detriment to their livelihoods, to their sustaining product that is their cattle, that would give them blood, that would give them milk, that would give them meat that they could trade and sell. But if there was a hunting outfit in the place, they would understand that that lion is worth 10 times what they have in the cattle. And that they would be willing to sacrifice 2 or 3 head of cattle to a lion, because they know by keeping the lion, it actually pays more than if the hunting outfit wasn't there and the lions weren't there. So that's the thing. And I think that's the difference between Kiwi and Aussie and Africa, is that the wildlife itself has value. But it has to be shown what that value is, whether it's through ecotourism or hunting. No African in the middle of the bush is interested in preserving the biodiversity. That's a farce. They're interested in living.
Yes.
They're interested in eating and living. And if a lion is taking out the stuff that's going to not allow them to live, they're taking out the lion.
So then you brought up bison and market hunting, and there's bighorn sheep being reintroduced to Texas, and even the bighorn sheep themselves, elk and all that. What do you sort of love about Americans' game management? You know, we kind of look at it and hear dribs and drabs, and thankfully people like Joe Rogan and media are telling that story around the world, and we're sort of going, oh, that's a really interesting model. What are you seeing living there?
Well, it's, there's only 2 places in the world in which wildlife is absolutely flourishing. South Africa, 500,000 head of wildlife in the 70s to 22 to 26 million head of wildlife today. A very unique model in which they took agricultural lands and rewilded them because they saw the economic value from a hunting perspective. The second place in the world where animals and wildlife are flourishing is the United States of America, due to the North American wildlife management model. And what that model allows is a state-driven, state-centric management of wildlife that is based on science and is based on the utilization of that animal. And by implementing certain federal regulations by which money gets paid in by excise taxes on guns and the Pittman-Robertson Act, and for fishing, the Dingell-Johnson Act, all of a sudden you've got this model in which wildlife is managed, hunting is a part of that management, all of the activities tied to hunting pay money that forms back into the states to be able to manage the wildlife better, restore the places that, hey, stop scratching. I'm talking right now. That allow the places to be managed, habitat to be managed, more places to be bought, gives us better wildlife, better utilization, more money. And so that's how it's supposed to work. But what if one of the tiers, hunters, starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller? We're at 4% today. We were at 6% 10 years ago. What if when we get to 2%, that money that starts getting pushed in is getting smaller and smaller and smaller? So you can't manage it anymore. You can't utilize it as much. It's a pretty scary little spiral. But as I said, it's a sportsman's paradise. And I think with education, obviously all of our law enforcement in place, poaching is still there, but it's not poaching like market hunting. It'll be very interesting if America ever makes venison legal. to sell here. Because that's the only reason venison is illegal here, because of the potential catastrophic, rednecks poaching like crazy, essentially, and wiping things out.
For the sake of our industry, I hope not.
Well, you've got the model already. So does Europe. They all do it. England, it's working. But a lot of that is not like public land, right? So it's a different model when it's a public land and the resources everyone's kind of feel. It's super complicated.
So how do you feel, obviously you've done a little bit of worldwide hunting yourself. How do you feel about, and like with this COVID-19 thing, our tourism industry is shot. I think you had Shannon from down near where I'm from.
No, it's Sean and Rachel.
Rachel, sorry. Yes, Rachel. Sorry, Rachel. Yeah, from Leithland. Yeah, how do you feel the hunting tourism? How do we create this value, keep the money for management turning, and where's the balance between outfitting, guiding, public, do it yourself, from your perspective?
I think everyone's allowed to hunt how they like to hunt. You can go DIY, you can hunt public, you can go with an outfitter. Everyone has this different desire of what they're searching for. Okay. I think the COVID-19 situation is going to hurt a significant amount of outfitters. The small mom and pops are not going to be around anymore. Not going to be able to stay open. The bigger outfits are going to be able to take the hit, going to be able to take this year off, and they'll come roaring back next year. I think there's a lot of resilience in our hunting community. I think everyone is banding together. I think that 2021 is going to be as Harry said, it's going to be a ripper season, because everything, we've had a rest, and we all need a rest. We all need a recalibration. We all need a recentering of who we are, and so does Mother Nature. And it's going to be a fantastic 2021, and I think a lot of the outfitters are going to have good seasons, and they're going to find their way. And this is maybe a lesson learned in that. Okay, how do we make sure that we're covered in a situation like this in the future? I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, I think it does, because that's what I think is sort of cannibalizing the hunting industry a little bit, is the hate on somebody's ideal of what a hunt is. We're what did you say? 4% of the states. We're not that very many. We need to be together.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are a long range hunter, if you are a trad bow hunter, if you're a compound bow hunter, if you're a rifle hunter, a pistol hunter, a knife hunter, you hunt with outfits, you hunt by yourself, you hunt public land, doesn't matter, because there's one common denominator of the 10 things I just said. We're all hunters. And we better start acting like hunters and acting like we're one community and stop this rubbish infighting. Because what are we doing? We're doing the job of the antis for them.
Yeah. No, it's as someone new, it's kind of like I love the conversation, the learning, the talking, the difference of opinion, and then to go on a forum and see somebody with a beaming smile get ripped to shreds because it doesn't fit somebody else's narrative of hunting just breaks my heart and turns me off the forum. I'm like, what are we doing exactly? What are we doing?
Yeah, and you just need one non-hunter to read that thread.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you've backtracked us 10 steps, 15 steps. But hey, everyone has their own opinion, I guess, you know. Like, you know what they say about opinions, right?
We've all got one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like arseholes. We all have one. Exactly.
Mate, like you say, 4 years on, do you have a big learning or a big like thing that keeps coming about from Blood Origins?
I think we're constantly evolving. I think we're constantly trying to push the envelope. So what you'll start seeing, like the next episode we drop, it's going to be more, you're going to get to know the individual more. Like this Friday, I'm going to start dropping content for an episode that's only dropping the following Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we used to just drop a picture, a trailer, a picture, the episode. Now you're going to see a bunch of the stuff that I leave on the cutting room floor. You're going to get to know the individual. Hopefully I can incorporate a little bit of this Instagram live and get them on there so somebody can watch them and they can hear me talk to them and get to, you know, see the relationship that I have with that individual, learn a little bit about him, and then go into the rest of the trailer and the episode. So that's, you know, that part is evolving. We're getting better. I'm getting better at creating narratives around these individuals. And then we're starting to explore more avenues for getting content out to people that like what we do. So for instance, I'll use Jim Shockey as an example. Jim Shockey's episode was 7 minutes, 8 minutes. We interviewed Jim for 55 minutes. So we're going to push out probably on YouTube a new series called the Blood Origins, the Uncut Interviews. And so you're going to get all 55 minutes of Jim Shockey. We'll have two camera angles. We're not going to put the cinematography to it. We're not going to put the music to it. It's just going to be him talking. And I think Joe Rogan has proven that if you're interested, you'll sit and watch it.
I'm interested, mate.
Yeah, so, you know, we've got the Jim Shockeys of the world and we've got the unknowns of the world that may be 26 minutes. But you'll get their entire story. You'll get their entire episode that we cut with a little bit of audio engineering, obviously. So that's one avenue. The talking heads is another avenue. We got a lot of content in the bank that nobody's ever seen. So we're going to just keep doing what we do. And in the next 2 or 3 months, we're actually making a big move. And I don't know if I've told anybody this actually. So you may be premiering this. Next 2 to 3 months, we're going to announce that Blood Origins is changing.
Awesome.
And we're changing to being a 501c3 nonprofit. Wow. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can change the game once again for storytelling around who we are as hunters. And that means showing our conservation efforts, generating funding for conservation efforts. If there's a cool kick-ass conservation project that we find anywhere on the globe, we want to find the project, find the funders, execute the project, show the people who we raised the money from, where their money went, super transparent, and then storytell around that project, storytell around that effort. And that's what's missing, right? You give money all the time. I give money all the time. I don't know what it does. Well, this society that we live in right now is all about FOMO, and it's all about being in real time, real interaction. And so that's what we want to give people. We want people to wake up in the morning and open up their phone and go, ooh, the little circle is around Blood Origins. Where are they today? Oh, I'm in Tanzania. Oh, we're looking at poachers in Tanzania. Okay. Oh, tomorrow, where are we today? Oh, we're looking at, a Punjab Urial in Pakistan that's getting translocated. That kind of stuff.
I mean,
nothing, just small stuff.
I was about to say that. I guess that answers my question. Have you found what you were looking for? Is it like a hunt and you continually find more? And just right there, you've found more. You've found a new place to go, a new adventure.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We don't. we're a small project right now, a small platform with big dreams. And this you're talking to me, and I guess I'm the vision behind the project, but this project's not about me. Otherwise, this project's about you and our community, and just telling that story right, and just taking you out of it, right? Taking the self out of it, and let's be about us. So
it'd be called Robbie Kröger instead, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then you mentioned YouTube, there's the website, there's Instagram. Is there any other platforms that Blood Origins is on? Hunter's Journal, of course.
Yeah, a couple of Hunter's Journals. We're on an app in America called Waypoint TV. We're on an app in America called Mossy Oak Go. We are on Amazon Prime for those people who get Amazon Prime into their living rooms. And season 4 is loading as we speak. So you can sit in your bed and watch Blood Origins. Yeah, and we've got articles in different places. We got a film, we got one film. One of our films is on Modern Huntsman's website. We've got a couple of our films on the New Field Ethos Journal's website. Yeah, we're just trying to get our stuff in as many places as we possibly can. We just want our name known, right? We don't want 300,000 people following us on Instagram. We just want people to, and this is what I think is the most humbling thing about it, is that when I walk around a convention or a conference or, any sort of expo, nobody bothers me because nobody knows me. And then if I start a conversation and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" I go, "Oh, I run Blood Origins." They're like, "Oh, we know Blood Origins." And that's the most humbling thing, when somebody that you just randomly meet says, "Oh, I've seen your stuff. I know Blood Origins," and we've done our job, essentially. So, and with, obviously doing podcasts with people like you, gets the message out to millions and millions and millions of people.
He's hoping. One day we'll be Joe Rogan and then have that.
There we go.
3-hour Jim Shockey.
Heck yes. There we go.
Awesome, mate. So my closing question is similar to what I was saying about Blood Origins, but for you, what is something that, from an individual level, always shows up in your life and doesn't do you wrong? When things go right, it's kind of like, there's that thing again. And maybe it is what you spoke about with truth, but what's sort of a quote or a saying or a way of living that keeps showing up for you?
So I have a quote that's in my business signature, and it's by a guy called Nelson Mandela.
Oh, know him.
And one of his quotes it's almost like a life quote, says this: "Everything is impossible until it gets done."
Boom. That's yeah, I love that. That's why I interview people here, to show them that it can be done. I love that. Thank you so much, Robbie. Thank you so much for allocating some of your time.
In the dark, chasing termites.
I look forward to a little photo of Blood Origins tomorrow, possibly of the aftermath of termite swarm.
Yeah, exactly.
Legend, man.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'll let you have a good night's sleep.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, brother. I'll stop there.